Hi everyone, it's Aya James. I'm super excited to share this charge bolts build. That is my favorite lightning sorcerer build now. It has the best visuals and sound effects ever among all sorcerer builds. It is literally like lighting fireworks everywhere that I named the build Fireworks. The build actually has decent damage too, that I can fly in tier 100 and defeat tier 100 bosses in around 13 seconds. I can do enough damage to skip all Uber Lily's mechanics too. The thing I like it most is that I can fight mobs in both close range and distant range. My survivability is really good. Plus, I don't even need to aim because of the new Staff of Lamb Essence update. Running the build is just so enjoyable. However, as a matter of fact, Charge Bolt wasn't competitive before Season 2. The update to the piercing static aspect makes it work effectively now, where it only deals less damage to targets after the first one, so will remain good damage against single target like elites and bosses. The unique Staff of Lamb Essence got stats buffs too. All damage stats are relevant now, and the lucky hit resource generation solves a good part of the mana issues in the charged bolt build. And more importantly, the aspect here improves the utility of the build so much that we don't need to aim at all, and half of the charged bolts are going to chase all monsters automatically. Plus, the combination with the piercing static aspect, charged bolts travel through every monster and deal great AoE damage, while triggering the Lightning Nova AoE damage too from the enhanced charged bolts passive to push the AoE damage from great to insane. We also run the ball lightning enchantment in this build. With good crit chance, we trigger a full screen of static ball lightnings, because the base lucky hit chance from charge bolts is pretty good, which is another insane AoE and single target damage source. Including all of the above, we move, we shoot, and we destroy everything. The biggest pain point of charge bolts builds pre-Season 2 was not sufficient mana, especially against single target. But we have lots of mana regeneration tools now. The first one is the Invigorating Conduit to recover 12 mana per Quackling energy pickup. Then we have the Static Surge legendary node that we recover 10% of our maximum mana after casting a few charged bolts. Next, we get a 20% mana cost reduction stat on Amulet, and it is the first priority on Amulet. We use the Asus Heirloom to not only improve our crit chance a lot, but also get another 10% mana cost reduction, plus a resource generation stat from the Rasha ring, and the resource generation lucky hit from Staff of Lamb Essence. We should get infinite mana to cast charged bolts and light fireworks everywhere, as well as bosses. I mean, what more could we want than a fireworks celebration for boss jobs? If you still find mana issues with all the above, I recommend getting another resource generation stat from the other ring, or using a resource generation lucky hit on gloves. For skill tree, we put 5 points to charge bolts, of course. I recommend choosing the passive to apply 25% damage reduction. It is universally good and will make us face tank tier 100 a lot easier. And we use Firebolt enchantment for burning synergy with Devouring Blaze, and Ball Lightning enchantment to take advantage of Ball Lightning's overpowered damage in Season 2. I put points to Lightning Spear to stun monsters everywhere, and put 1 point to Ice Blades to trigger cold damage for 1 Rasha ring stack. I will scan through the whole skill tree quickly. You can find all the details in the build link in the description of the video too. For gear setup, if you come from any of my previous videos including Ball Lightning and Chain Lightning, I made it super easy. Just switch the gloves to one that has high crit chance, 4 ranks of charge bolts, attack speed, and piercing static aspect, and switch the weapon to Staff of Lamb Essence, and you're good to go. I tested running tier 100 without the Staff of Lamb Essence. To be honest, it wasn't that enjoyable for me, as we need to move closer to monsters to crush them, and sometimes we may face mana issues versus single elite because of losing one resource generation lucky hit stat. So I recommend only trying this build after you got the Staff of Lamason. The other important things are get high crit chance in all these 3 positions. Crit chance is very important for this build to work effectively. Get 3% armor stats from these 4 positions so that we can get 13k armor easily to face tank tier 100 monsters. Check the description of the video on why 13k armor is the critical point if you are interested. Also get 1 fire, poison, shadow resistance from helm, chest armor, or pants. Or we can also get a ring that has 12% resistance in one of the 3 types and save 1 stat that we can get even more defensive stats. If you have Shackle, Godslayer Crown, or T-Ball's Will, putting them on is great. But I don't recommend to use Raiment of the Infinite, as we will lose too much survivability while we already have enough stun sources from Lightning Spear. If you use 1 unique, I recommend having 1 Disobedience and 1 Snow Veil to largely improve our armor. If you use 2 uniques, I recommend putting Disobedience on Amulet and use Snow Veil on chest armor to keep our armor high. I don't recommend putting Piercing Static on Amulet as it makes it hard to switch to other builds. Building tankiness will be hard too if you want to use the powerful uniques, as it does require putting Disobedience on Amulet. Here's my full gear details. The stats are almost to the ideal selection. You can find the ideal stat priorities in the build link in the description of the video. All stats in the video are good alternative stats if they are different from the build link. The new Tarasha ring is a pretty big damage amplifier to the build. If you already got it, great. If you are still on your way to get it, I recommend using a ring with high crit chance and resource generation stat, plus the Edge Master aspect. And I recommend using the Domination Vampiric Power instead of Infection. The Infection Vampiric Power has pretty low damage contribution and is only used to trigger poison damage for 1 Tarasha ring stack. The most important thing in the Paragon Board is to unlock the Static Surge legendary node as soon as possible, as it gives us mana regeneration and enables us to apply 100% vulnerable uptime for all monsters. I use the Enchanter Glyph to improve our non-physical damage to non-elites, elites, and bosses. On top of that, it is combined with the Frigid Fate legendary node for another 9% extra multiplicative damage. Plus we get 5% extra maximum lightning resistance that we take around 17% less lightning damage. That will help us survive better in tier 100 nightmare dungeons. If you die a lot from using the build, you can replace the Elementalist Glyph with the Reinforced Glyph for further damage reduction. And here is my full Paragon Board path. For Vampiric Powers, I recommend using Ravenous. It gives us 40+% extra attack speed for great damage boost and great synergies with Ball Lightning. Anticipation, it helps us get close to 0 cooldown ultimate for much more damage and survivability. Accursed Touch, it does great AoE damage to further speed up farming. Infection, it triggers poison damage for 1 extra Tarasha ring stack. Use Domination instead if you don't have the Tarasha ring yet. And Prey on the Weak, we get another 16% multiplicative damage boost as we apply 100% vulnerable uptime to all monsters. Fireworks definitely does less damage than Ball Lightning builds. You can see the difference between the two builds from this Uber Lilies fight comparison, where I have close to identical gear. However, I do like the Fireworks build more, and I'm actually using the Fireworks build now to farm tier 100 and Helltides. I can fight monsters both in close range or at a distance, that I can easily get away with the dangerous elite affixes while maintaining my high damage output. The extra 25% damage reduction from the charged bolt passive makes me even tankier. Another point I really enjoyed is that I don't need to aim at all. The Staff of Lamason enables charged bolts to be a ranged attack and chase monsters automatically. Everything around us just become fireworks. They sparkle and then vanish. Another good comparison is that I can complete 8 to 9 waves of this event while running this fireworks build. When running Ball Lightning builds, I usually complete 6 waves, because I have to frequently run 2 different monsters to do damage, and I can get 600 cinders in 15 minutes in Helltides easily, where I usually need 17 minutes to get 600 cinders from Ball Lightning builds. There is no specific skill rotation in this build. We are pretty flexible to fight enemies both in close range or at a distance. We can always pre-cast Lightning Spear to pre-stun enemies. The ultimate is also free, that we don't need to save it. Just cast it whenever we are surrounded by mobs. Keep pressing charge bolts and witness everything melt in seconds. I'm happy Blizzard Dev introduces the Rasha ring that makes it much easier to gain enough damage to run tier 100 and skip all Uber Lilies mechanics. Builds like charge bolts or chain lightning can also shine, even though we have the overpowered Ball Lightning builds. I will use Ball Lightning builds for bosses for sure, but I prefer this Fireworks build for general farming. If you like the video, please help me share it and subscribe to my channel for more min-max sorcerer builds. Thank you for watching and see you next time.